Hello, what's up? So today we're basically going to be asking the question, is Valorant's current meta the best meta it's ever been? I was just very curious on, I was really just asking the question to myself like, oh, is this meta really like the best it's ever been in Valorant? And I asked that question because almost every single character gets played and almost every single character is like good in the game and they all have their own uses on every single map. Like on some maps you might not want to use Sova, so instead you'll use like a Fade. Or on some maps you might not want to use like a Killjoy or a Cypher, so you might use like a Deadlock or a Sage or even like a Vise. And each character has like their own individual like good strong suit to them. There was the Teo meta in the beginning of the year, which was, pretty bad, but nowadays it seems like we're living on like the good part of Valorant, especially since like 2021 was a bunch of overpowered shit. 2022 was still pretty overpowered, you know what I mean? And then 2023 was just like a repetitive meta. It was kind of like the same comps being played on every single map, and you needed to play a specific character on each map to get like the most effectiveness from them. But yeah, it seems like even with like 2024, there's like even the Neon meta. It just seems like for the past couple of months, since Champions was coming very soon, the devs at Riot have been playing it very safe and not patching a lot of stuff and not boosting a lot of stuff. They've been keeping it pretty plain and simple and not really doing any meta-defining, meta-changing adjustments. Because the meta that we're in, like I said, is not that bad. I think it's a genuinely beautiful thing that every character gets played. Like even some games, like I said, a Reyna or a ISO or a Raze or a Jet, even occasionally seeing like a Yoru or a Phoenix depending on which map you're playing. It just varies so much on what character you're going to get on each different map. And like I said, they all have their own effectiveness. Or like if you try to look at pro play and stuff like that, they do run comps with like double initiator or double duelist, and depending on the map you'll get a variation of the two. But let's say like Corrode, for example. A lot of people like to play Vise on Corrode or like to play Fade on Corrode, like to play it safe and stuff. But then on the other hand, people will run like a Sage and run a Sova or a KO, while they also run like a ISO, maybe a Phoenix, a Jet. They all have like their own variation, even like Yoru. It just seems like there's a point that we're in that there's like a bunch of mixing and matching going on, and you never know really what you're gonna get like today or tomorrow, with depending on what team you watch or depending on what like day you play rank. But being 100% honest, I think a lot of people don't like this type of meta because they like to see like familiarity and they like to be able to just play the same character over and over. And some people did like enjoy having 2022 and 2021 where everything was overpowered, and it was kind of like a thing where everybody had a chance. You just had to know how to play your character and get the most effectiveness out of them. And like I said, we did go through a rough patch where like a bunch of characters were just worthless and really didn't do much or add much to the meta. But nowadays, you'll catch me playing Cypher, Sova, Vise, Fade. And the thing is they all pretty much do the exact same thing, and they're in the same role, and some of them do just play better on certain maps. So it's good to have like that big variation, you know what I mean? Or like here's the best example I can give you. So when we play Haven, right, I would say the best character to play on Haven is either like a Killjoy or a Cypher. And then if you were to go play on Ascent, Cypher's like the third best, but you're most likely going to want to play Killjoy, but you could play Vise. Vise is very good on that map too. And now don't even get me started on the fact that you can also play Chamber on stuff like Ascent and on Corrode or even on Haven and have the same amount of effectiveness. But now we do also have to look at the fact that since the meta is so diverse and it's always ever changing, it's going to be a lot more difficult for like, let's say like new players that come in to play the game, because they're going to have to learn from like the ground up the different metas on each individual map compared to just being able to play, oh, let's just play Jet on every map, or let's just play Reyna on every map, or let's just play Cypher on every map, or Killjoy on every map, or even like, lol, let's just play Sova on every map. They'll have to learn each individual comp for each map to try to get better and try to rank up. Even though, like I said, you could play those characters even though it's not map specific and still have good effectiveness, which is what I think they were aiming for in the beginning. You know what I mean? But yeah, I personally do think it was a very good decision to try to like expand the meta. But like I said, I do admit it is kind of hard to have to like play in this meta. Since, like I said, there's so much difference between each game, you're basically going to have to adapt within every single game that you play, because it's like you're seeing something new every single time. Of course, that just means that you have to play their game more and play it more often. But I mean, you could just go look at their other game, League. They have like 100 different characters, but their meta still seems to be pretty balanced, you know what I mean? Not everybody's going to play the same characters, and since there's like literally 100 plus champs in that game, it's always going to be different. every single game. But that also just increases the skill gap and makes it wider and wider and wider the more characters they like to add in and the more maps they like to add in. But to be 100% honest, it took Riot almost 4 years to make the meta like this. We went from Jet having 3 smokes, 2 updrafts, rechargeable knives, even when you right click them and instantly being able to dash, even Reyna having like 4 recharges on her heal and her dismiss, or Chamber having 3 different weapons all at the same time and having a broken operator and being able to teleport halfway across the map. Or in 2025, where Teo was dominating the game, everybody played post-plant 24/7. Even Raze at one point in beta had 2 nades. 2 of them. But yeah, at the end of the day, they'll always like iron out the meta to make sure, everything is balanced. But I do really believe that nowadays, it's at the peak, like it's at its best. My question is now, what are they going to do to have the meta get shooken up a little bit, or to add new characters in? Like, could you imagine they try to add in a new character by the end of this year, or they try to nerf or buff other characters? I think it's going to get really, really messy for them, and it seems like it's going to be very hard to like navigate. But you never know, maybe they add a new character and it just does nothing for the beginning of the year, and then they give them a couple of upgrades and, few patches, and they become one of the top characters in the game. But they should be coming out with a new character sometime soon, and I don't know, I kind of want it to be an initiator, if I'm being honest. Since I do play that role, I am kind of biased towards it, but I mean, what was the newest character? Waylay? And she's like a dashing agent? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we need like another dashing agent to come out, or like a duelist to come out. Also, we got Vise and Clove and stuff like that, so I do think we're due for a new initiator. And once again, I personally want like a new recon initiator or something like that. Just because, Sova and Fade and a little bit of KO and a little bit of Gecko, like they all do the trick and they're all pretty good, but at the same time, I want something that's like crazy good, you know what I mean? I might be tripping a little bit here, but imagine having an initiator that can be like a third duelist type thing. That'd be cool to me. But I don't know. Y'all can let me know in like the comments or whatever you think would be good. What would you want, like a duelist, a Senti, an initiator, smoke? Let me know. And that's it for today. I'll see you.